All right, hello everyone, and welcome to a re-video on Solana Jargon, the programming model on Solana, and what are tokens? How can you create tokens on Solana? Let's kick things off. Let me share some high-level context. Okay, what the goal of this video was? The goal of these slides was, okay, first we understand why is Solana introduced, why it might be a little better than Bitcoin. Same logic applies to Ethereum. Solana and Ethereum do something extra that Bitcoin does not. What is that thing specifically? Smart contracts. Then we'll understand that Solana, the way it was built was that Solana blockchain will have a bunch of accounts. The blockchain is just thousands and millions of accounts, some of them being accounts like these, the ones that you see on Phantom when you open it. Some of them storing some data. Specifically, if you want to do any smart contract logic, then you will need to store some data somewhere on Solana that is stored in accounts. Then we wanted to understand how can you install the Solana command line interface locally. If you have the Solana command line interface locally, you can run some commands to interact with some smart contracts. That is why we wanted to go through this step 4. Next step, we wanted to understand how is data usually stored in the Web 2 world. When you are creating an Uber-like application, how do you store your data? Basic Postgres databases, NoSQL databases. Then we wanted to understand how can you store data on the Solana blockchain. As I said, Solana introduces smart contracts, so does Ethereum. Ethereum stores data a different way. Solana stores data a different way. How does Solana store data is what we wanted to understand here. Here's what is data. Anytime you create a smart contract, anytime you try to create your own decentralized Uber or decentralized social network, you will need to store the data somewhere, right? This is the user data. This is what the user's name looks like. Let's say this is what the user's first name, last name looks like. This is how you store it in the Web 2 world. This is how you store it in the Web 3 world. If we understand everything until here, then it was how can you create your own token? There are various ways. How can you create it using the Solana CLI? How can you create it using JavaScript? How can you attach metadata to it? What is the token 2022 program? How is it different from the original token program? That is the goal for this video, high level context. Let's begin with why do you need Solana? Why is it better than Bitcoin? All right. Let's start with the context. In the live class, I mentioned, this is going to be a hard class. It was a hard class, which is why most people weren't able to follow along. We had to cut the class into a doubt session. So today's class is mildly heavy. This means, it will be a little hard today. If this horse is how hard the promise class was in JavaScript, today's class, should have been close to this. We'll see. But, not as hard as promises in JavaScript or maybe, traits or lifetimes in Rust, but still fairly hard, compared to everything we've done until now. The context for today's class was, understanding why ETH and Sol are slightly better over Bitcoin. What extra do they introduce? Then understanding this thing called programs, which is the extra thing that these guys introduced. Some jargon specific to Solana that you need to know before you can start to create these programs. Then looking at one popularly created program on Solana called the token program. Then looking at its upgraded version, the token 2022 program. That is the context for today. Let's get into the first section. Why is ETH and Sol better than Bitcoin? All right. Even though the title says why Solana, a lot of the logic I'm going to talk about applies to both Solana as well as Ethereum. Until now, in the last 3 weeks or so, we have gone through the following. What exactly are blockchains and how do they work under the hood? We went through the Bitcoin white paper. We understood the concept of decentralized money. We also understood there is this concept of public and private keys, how you can use them to sign transactions that miners use to verify and credit and debit balances. Basically, if you ever have a Bitcoin wallet, you will have a public key that you can share with the world. You will have a private key that you will keep with yourself. Anytime you want to transfer Bitcoin, you will sign a transaction using this private key. Hopefully that is clear by now. The problem is Bitcoin only solves one use case. I repeat, this is a important statement for you to know. Bitcoin only solves one use case. What is that use case? Decentralized currency. What happened after 2012 2013 was कि people started to create their own blockchains that solved different use cases. कि यार किसी ने lending protocol बना दी. Someone made a lending protocol. Harkirat, what is a lending protocol? Basically a blockchain that lets you lend and borrow Bitcoin, let's say. Someone created this. Then someone created something else, their own blockchain that, let's say, does Uber. Someone created a decentralized Uber. No one created this. Even Uber wasn't a thing back then, but you get the idea, okay? A lot of people started to build their own blockchains. Bitcoin was the very first blockchain that existed. And then people were like, wow, Bitcoin is catching so much fire. I will create my own blockchain. And someone created, let's say, decentralized swap blockchain. And then someone else created a decentralized Uber blockchain, so on and so forth. The problem was, okay, all three of these, I repeat, all three of these have their own set of miners. There are few people who are very bullish on Bitcoin. They have their machines running back home mining Bitcoin. And then there are people who are very bullish on this decentralized chain. They have their own miners. They have their computers running this. There are people who are, more bullish on decentralized Uber, think that this can become a big use case. They have their machines at their home running this. No single blockchain was able to become very big because whatever use case came, separate miners for this. So this is, not as decentralized as Bitcoin. Bitcoin Pay, very quickly it caught fire. There are thousands of miners running, thousands of people trying to secure the network. That is necessarily not true in a new blockchain. New blockchain mein there might be just 10, miners initially, and slowly the number of miners might increase. So these were not as secure as the Bitcoin network. They had what's called a cold start problem. What does a cold start mean? You can start the network. You can ask people to come on your blockchain, but it will have a cold start. Initially, not a lot of people would come, which would mean your network is not secure, which would mean no one would use your network, which would mean less miners will come. So it's a vicious cycle of your blockchain never growing. So Ethereum said, you are building this use case separately, asking separate miners to start your decentralized swap blockchain nodes. You are creating this separately. Bitcoin is separate. This solves for currency. This solves for decentralized swaps or decentralized lending. This solves for something else. I will create something new. I will introduce this concept of smart contracts. What did ETH introduce? ETH introduced the concept of smart contracts. What are smart contracts? Ethereum said, we are just like Bitcoin. Ethereum said, we are just like Bitcoin, use me. People were like, Bitcoin already exists. What extra do you solve? So ETH said, use me, because all of these blockchains will become obsolete. All of them will come to us. I repeat, Ethereum said, whatever experiments people are trying, these blockchains will die and they will come to the Ethereum blockchain. Why? Because they said if the Ethereum blockchain is decentralized enough, if we have enough miners, everyone will just build on top of us. I repeat, they said everyone will build on top of us. What does building on top of us mean? All of these chains will be like, don't start our own miners. These chains will not create their own blockchain. I repeat, they will not create their own blockchain. They will just be a smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain. So the decentralized Uber use case that we were talking about, this decentralized lending use case, these won't have the cold start problem. These use cases can just become smart contracts on top of the Ethereum blockchain. that is the novel thing that Ethereum introduced. Ethereum said, यार सब लोग अपना अपना बना रहे हैं. Everyone is building their own blockchain. They said, let Bitcoin be the dominant blockchain. That is fine. They came first. They solved for one thing and one thing only, which is decentralized money. Let them be that. But we are going to solve for decentralized money also. ETH also has its own native token called, ETH, if you've ever bought it. So they solve for this, and they let anyone create use cases on top of the Ethereum blockchain. They said, आपको बनाना है अपना कुछ, you want to create a decentralized Uber, create a smart contract on top of the Ethereum blockchain, deploy your mini smart contract over here on the Ethereum blockchain. We already have a bunch of nodes running. आप थोड़ा सा कोड यहाँ रन कर लो ना. Just run some of your code over here rather than creating your own blockchain, rather than asking other miners to start your own blockchain. We already have the Ethereum blockchain. Whatever use case you want to create, be it decentralized money, be it decentralized Uber, just deploy a smart contract over here. You will get the security of ETH. What does security of ETH mean? Okay, from the first day itself, you have so many miners who are verifying your smart contract. You don't have to have the cold start problem anymore. Just deploy on top of Ethereum and you will get the security of Ethereum from day zero. That is what ETH solved. That is where Solana and Ethereum are different. In today's class, we'll understand about one of the biggest use case that blockchains like ETH and Sol solve for. Programs, they are just called programs on Solana, or smart contracts, they are called smart contracts on Ethereum. What is a program or a smart contract? ETH was one of the first blockchains to introduce the concept of decentralized state or decentralized programs. These are popularly known as smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain. What are smart contracts? It's like some very basic code that you write and deploy on the Ethereum blockchain, and all your users can directly interact with this smart contract rather than interacting with your own blockchain. Can you create your own blockchain like we did a while back? You can. But is it better to just use Ethereum? Probably is. Ethereum is very secured. Ethereum is very well audited. Ethereum is written by some really smart people. Why not deploy a small smart contract here rather than trying to build your own blockchain? That is the biggest thing that Ethereum solved, and people, blew their minds, and people were like, this is going to be the next big thing. And now today also, new use cases keep on coming. Someone is building an anonymous, let's say, blockchain where it gets everything that Ethereum has but anonymity. So, you keep on building on top. Which one of these will win, we don't know. But Ethereum for sure won. Ethereum for sure built, this is controversial to say, but for sure built a better blockchain than Bitcoin. Why? Because it not just solves what Bitcoin solves, it is a superset of Bitcoin. It has the concept of decentralized money. It also lets people deploy their own smart contracts, so it can do 100 different things, while Bitcoin only does one thing. That is where Ethereum shines, and that is where Solana shines. Now Solana does something more on top and makes, is much faster than Ethereum, has much lower gas fees. If you've heard of this, if not, that's fine. But Solana is very similar to Ethereum in the sense that you can create smart contracts there. But Solana is much faster, which is why, it's slowly picking up more pace than Ethereum. If you are curious to look at a smart contract, here is an Ethereum smart contract. How do you write this? How can you deploy this small, green thing over here? The answer is by writing code that looks like this. Now, this might look a little overwhelming, but if you look at it, it is very similar to a class in JavaScript. It's called a contract because it's a smart contract, but similar to a class where you define some attributes. Let's say an attribute called count. You create a constructor very similar to a constructor in a JavaScript class. You initialize count to 0. You have a function called increment and a function called decrement. This one increases the value of this count variable. This one decreases the value of this count variable. And you have a function called get count that returns this specific count variable. If this smart contract you deploy on the blockchain, You can call the increment function to increase this counter. You can call the decrement function to decrease this counter. You can call the get count function to get the current count. It might not feel like a very important use case because it isn't, but all you have to do is write more and more complicated logic in here to create your own decentralized Uber, decentralized swap protocol, decentralized lending protocol. Everything, at least on the Ethereum blockchain, is a smart contract like this, where you write your logic to have some state and update the state. What is a smart contract? ETH was one of the first blockchains to introduce the concept of decentralized state and programs. This whole thing is a program, and the count variable here is what we mean when we say state. The smart contract holds something. It holds some variables. They are not stored in a database. They are stored, directly on the Ethereum virtual machine, which we will get to. But these variables are what are called state. These functions are what let you update the state. Here is a similar contract on. This is an HTTP server. I thought we had a Solana contract here, but let's not go here. We haven't done Express right now. But if we did, this is a simple HTTP server that, again has this concept of count that goes up and down. But yeah, feel free to ignore this for now until we reach HTTP. We have sort of reached HTTP, but let's not go here. All right. The way Solana programs work is significantly different from other blockchains, and let's understand how. This statement is important. Basically, I'm sure some of you, at least, or maybe all of you, were able to understand this pseudocode at least. This looks like a class in JavaScript, and this is a state variable, a variable that is associated with this class. This is a function that lets you increment the state variable. This is a function that lets you decrement the state variable, get the state variable. It's all stored in a single place. Solana has a very weird data model. The way data is stored on the Solana blockchain is not as easy as doing this. That is what we will have to understand today as we reach the next set of slides. But is this clear? Why is Solana better? Why is Ethereum better? Both of these are better than a blockchain like Bitcoin, because Bitcoin solves for one thing. It doesn't let other people deploy smart contracts on the existing Bitcoin network. Ethereum, on the other hand, does. So in case of ETH, other people can come, more developers can come and use the security of Ethereum and deploy their own programs here. They don't have to create their own blockchains. They don't need to have the cold start problem. They will go to Ethereum directly, create a smart contract similar to this smart contract right here, and deploy it over the on the Ethereum network. They're good to go. They have a decentralized Uber, decentralized swap, whatever. All right, cool. Let's get into what are accounts on Solana. This has a little bit to do with the data model of Solana, but more than that, this is just a jargon that we need to know of. Let's try to understand this next. All right, let's understand about accounts on Solana. On the Solana blockchain, an account is a fundamental data structure used to store various types of information. Too much jargon here. What is the easiest way to understand what an account is? An account on Solana is nothing but, let's say, a public private key that you created. In the past, we created, if you remember, using the ED25519 elliptic curve, we created a public private key pair. We also created wallets. Let me show you one wallet of mine here in Chrome. If I open this wallet, I see a Solana public key over here. This is one account on Solana. Now, Solana has a bunch of kinds of accounts. This is one kind. If I go to any explorer, for example, if I go to explorer.solana.com and paste this account, it says account, this thing. If I go over here, it says, this is an account. Address of this account is this. It has this much Solana in it. It has 0 data in it. That is something new. It has 0 data in it. It has a assigned program ID. It has something called the assigned program ID, which is called the system program. And finally, it says it is executable. No, this account is not executable. So until now, we thought an account is simply something that holds some Solana of mine. We thought every account can just hold some Solana, but turns out accounts can hold data as well. What is data? A bunch of bytes, right? What is data in the end? My name, Harkirat. If I store somewhere, I am storing some data somewhere. And similarly, inside this account, I can not just store some Solana, I can also store some data. How do you store data? We will get to. But do we understand a new kind of account? An account that not just has some soul, but also has some data. And lastly, assigned program ID or owner is something we will understand about eventually. Ignore this field for now. Executable, no, is another important sort of concept to know of. Can you guess what executable might mean? It means whether or not this account is a program. I repeat, accounts are this thing that you see over here. Accounts are something that can store data, and accounts are something that can store a program or smart contract as well. Executable, yes, means that this account stores a smart contract. So do we understand what all an account can do in Solana? It's not as easy as what you see over here in Phantom. That is one kind of account. But on the Solana blockchain, an account is a fundamental data structure that stores various types of information. It can be used to store data. It can be used to store LAMP ports or Solana basically. Solana ka, what is the other name for it? LAMP ports. We discussed this in the last video, right? Okay, one sol is actually equal to 10 raised to power 9 LAMP ports. So you can say that account can store some Solana. You can say that account can store some LAMP ports. And lastly, programs. On Solana, programs are a special account that contain executable code. Harkiyat, what is executable code? This thing we saw in the last slide, right? This is executable code. Of course, this is on the Ethereum blockchain and not the Solana blockchain. But if you look at it, this is a lot of code that will eventually be deployed where? On the ETH network, right? Similarly, when you deploy the same thing on the Sol network, it is stored in an account on the Solana network. Whenever you deploy your own smart contract in the future on the Solana blockchain, it will be stored here in an account, very similar to the account that you have in Phantom over here. So do we understand the three kinds of accounts? एक तो normal account that just holds some LAMP ports. एक account which stores some data. If you remember from the last slide, I said that it is very easy to store data on the Ethereum blockchain, slightly harder to store it on the Solana blockchain. What I meant by that was that on Solana, even data is stored on various accounts, which is why it gets a little hard. Programs are stored in a separate account. Data is stored in a different account. We will be coming to this very soon in the next episode. But the point to understand through this slide is that until now, we've only been aware of one kind of account on the Solana blockchain. We've only been aware of this account, but the Solana blockchain can have various kinds of accounts. One that just stores LAMP ports, one that stores some data and some LAMP ports, one that stores some programs and some LAMP ports. Let's look at a few examples of all three of these. Account with data and LAMP ports. Account with data and LAMP ports. Account with ये गलत है statement. Let's see. Let's open it and see. This account has some data, 282 bytes of data. It also has some Solana. It is still not executable. This is not a program. It is still an account, but it has some data as well as some LAMP ports. Let's look at another one. Account with LAMP ports but no data. Ye to we already saw. Let's again open it here in the other explorer. Account with, this account doesn't exist only because I got rid of all the Solana over here. I had to send it to a student. But if you look at a different one, you will see this has some LAMP ports but no data. And lastly, a program. I repeat, a Solana account which is a program. When I go to this address, and believe it or not, this is a normal address only, even though it starts with TOKEN, does not mean this is some special kind of an account. It is a normal account, but does it have executable set to yes? It indeed does. So this is a program, a smart contract deployed on the blockchain, similar to the smart contract we saw in the last slide. We saw an Ethereum smart contract that looks like this. Similarly, you can create Solana smart contracts. This is one such smart contract deployed on the blockchain. It might feel weird, it starts with token, but it's not too hard to, brute force a bunch of public private keys to create one that starts with token, which is why, that is what these guys have done. So don't feel like this is some special kind of account. It's a very normal account, very similar to the one that I have over here. Only my account has no data but lampposts. This account has some data, has some lampposts, and has executable set to yes. So whenever you are exploring any account on the Solana blockchain, you will worry about four things. You will worry about how much lampposts does it have. You will worry about how much does it have any data. Is it executable or not? And one more thing you will worry about is the owner, which we will eventually get to, or the assigned program ID. But the first three things are something you need to be, you look at when you look at any account on Solana. Most accounts, the accounts that us laymen hold, only have lampposts, only have Solana. But if you want to use smart contracts, then you have to deploy the smart contract. That will be an account on the blockchain that has executable set to true, similar to this account right here. It has executable set to yes. And lastly, data. You can also store some data on the blockchain. What this data is, we will get to very soon when we start to create a decentralized Uber or whatever, a decentralized swap. When we start to create these, we'll try to understand what exactly this data is used for. What are the accounts that have some data and some lampposts but are not executable? Why are they used? We will get to. But what is the goal to understand? In Solana there are many types of accounts. Some of them hold some data and some lampposts. Others hold just some lampposts and no data. Other have executable set to true, and they are just programs that people have deployed on the Solana blockchain. One more thing to know here, which I think I haven't mentioned, is something called rent. I repeat, something called rent on the Solana blockchain. Let's discuss that in the next episode. It doesn't have slides over here, but I'm going to introduce an episode just to discuss rent on the Solana blockchain. All right. What is rent on Solana and how is it calculated? This is a very nice guide, which thankfully someone will post in the comments below. It will take you through, what rent is on Solana and why do you need it. I think from first principles, you can already deduce this. If this is the blockchain and there are multiple miners all around the world, what are these miners? These are machines, Mac machines, Windows machines, where if you want to store some data, if you are a smart contract engineer, if you're building a decentralized Uber, if you want to store some data in here, in each one of these machines, you need to pay something, right? Else the blockchain will just get clogged with too many of these accounts. Some user will come and take up all the space in all of these machines. To make sure you can't do that, whenever you want to store some data on the blockchain, you have to pay rent for it. What is rent? Rent is a mechanism on the Solana blockchain that ensures efficient usage of blockchain resources. It requires that accounts maintain a minimum balance proportional to the amount of data that they store on the network. If you store this much data on the network, you will have to, let's say, put 1 SOL worth of rent. If you take this much data, you will have to put 2 SOL worth of rent. The accounts that we were seeing a while back, specifically, there was an account here that was storing both the data and some lampposts. I repeat, from the last slide, if you remember, this account right here has 282 bytes of data and is also holding some SOL. Why do you think it's holding Sol? It might be कि चलो इनको whoever has this account wants some Solana in their account. That might be one reason. But the bigger reason is that this Sol is actually rent for this 282 bytes. If you remember the token program, this last account right here, even this account, even though it is storing a program, it is storing something which has executable set to yes, it is still taking a lot of bytes. All of this smart contract code is stored in this account. All of this smart contract code is stored in this account, and hence they need to pay some rent for it. That is what this amount right here is. This amount is not because ye account needs 0.93 Sol for some reason. It is because since this account wants to store this much bytes of data on the blockchain, they need to pay some rent. This is that rent. Now rent is a vague term actually. This isn't exactly rent. This is the rent exemption amount. There is a small difference between rent and the rent exemption amount. Let's understand what this difference is. Accounts, it requires that accounts maintain a minimum balance in proportional to the data that they're storing on the network. Accounts that fail to do so will be removed from the ledger to free up the storage. They will be removed from the blockchain. If your account, which is storing some data, does not have some Solana in it, eventually this account will be removed. For many accounts, the bank will charge you a fee if you don't maintain a minimum balance, right? If you ever go to HDFC Bank, they will be like, sir, your minimum balance is 10,000 rupees. If you store less than that, you will have to pay 500 rupees a month. If your balance falls below the required minimum, the bank charges you a fee or it eventually closes your account. Solana is similar. You can either decide to pay rent. You can pay 0.1 Sol every, let's say, few blocks or every few minutes, or you can have a minimum amount in your account. You can have a minimum, let's say 0.93 Sol in here, and then you are rent exempted. उसके बाद आपको rent देने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. As long as this much amount minimum balance is maintained, no money will be debited from here. आपका rent कटेगा नहीं. Your amount won't go down if you have a minimum amount over here proportional to the amount of data that you are storing. So there are two ways you can store data on the blockchain, specifically the Solana blockchain. Either you store some amount from which rent gets debited every few minutes, or you store a minimum amount in here such that now rent won't get debited. You are exempted from rent. What does exemption mean? Ke maaf kar diya. Rent is exempted for you. No money will be debited, no Sol will be debited, provided you have a minimum balance proportional to this amount. That is what rent and rent exemption is. And rent is refundable. If you ever close a bank account, they will give you your money back, right? Similarly, if you ever want to close this specific program, you can pull this money out and take it back with you. You only have to keep it here until the time you want the program to live over here. If an account is closed, the data is deleted from the chain and then the rent is refunded to the account owner. If you scroll down, there are a few methods over here, a few command line commands that you can run using the Solana CLI to see how much rent that you need to hold. For example, if you run Solana rent 16, and this will not work for you right now, this is coming in the next slide, how can you install the Solana CLI? I already have it, which is why when I run Solana rent 16, it tells me if you want to store 16 bytes of data, make sure you have this much Sol. Let's see what the amount is for these many amounts of data. If I want to store 134080 bytes of data on the blockchain, it says rent exempt minimum this much Sol you have to have, 0.93408. How much does this guy have? 0.93408. So the token program, whatever this program is, whatever this account is that is storing some data, they have this amount of Solana in here. Why? Because if they don't, then they will have to pay rent every few blocks. Since they have the minimum amount needed for exemption, they are exempted from paying rent. Cool. That is what rent and rent exemption means. Why do you need it? Solana blockchain will get overly clogged if you don't have the concept of rent. Since there is the concept of rent, no single user comes and takes a lot of space. People take only as much space as they need, and pay rent for that specific space that they're taking. If their program needs to be bigger, then of course they need to store more data. They need to have more Solana present in that account. Cool. To summarize, there are accounts on the Solana blockchain. They can only have lampports, which means only have SOL, similar to this account that I have over here. The purpose of this usually is for you to hold Solana. There is no data I want to store on the blockchain. I just want to make sure I have 0.079 SOL on the blockchain. So I only have lampports. I don't have any data. Then there are accounts that have data. But if you have data, you will also need to have lampports. If you don't have lampports, eventually your rent will keep on debiting and your account will eventually go away from the blockchain if you are not, keeping the minimum amount of lamport in that account. And lastly, executable accounts, or what are called programs, which again, they store some data. And since they store some data, they also need to hold some lamports in those accounts. All right. So these are the 3 type of accounts that you will see. The only extra thing we have introduced is rent, which is something you have to pay if you want to deploy data on the blockchain. And what is an example of this? The token program that I just showed. This token program has this address, has this much SOL they have in the account. Why? Because they want to store this much data. Now, can you guess what this data is? This data is the token program itself. What is a total program, Hakirat? We'll get to in the upcoming slides. But this is actually a smart contract. These much bytes is actually some code that looks something like this. This was the Solidity code we went through. Of course, Solidity code will not be deployed on the Ethereum blockchain, Solana blockchain. Some other code will be. But this code is what is, 1340880 bytes of data that is stored in this specific account right here. Cool. Let's move on. Let's install the Solana CLI locally. I already had it. You saw when I was running this, it would give me this is the minimum balance you need to have. Let's get this installed on your machine so you can start to play with this command line interface a little bit. Let's do that in the next slide. All right, installing the Solana CLI. This is important and a little weird for people on Windows. I've seen most people struggle in this step whenever I go to a hackathon as a mentor. So if you're on a Linux machine, this command is good enough for you to run to install the Solana command line interface locally. If you're on Windows, here is a hack that has worked for most people, which is go to their releases page, go to github.com/solanalabs/solana/releases. What does releases means? It basically means कि जो code है ना, the Solana code, it's converted into various binaries and released over here. Specifically, if you are on a Windows machine, select Solana releases x86 64 PC Windows, this specific option right here, which probably is this one right here. And once you download this and unzip this locally, let me do that on my side as well. Basically, when you unzip this, you should see a bunch of exe files like this. Cargo build bpf.exe, Solana keygen.exe, solana.exe. And these are the executable files that you can run. Very similar to what commands I will be running locally. So locally, if I'm running the command Solana address, let's say, you can run the command solana.exe space address. So if you've installed this on a Windows machine, you have all the binaries over here. Let me quickly unzip this and show you. If I unzip this and go to bin, you will see cargo build sbf.exe, solana.exe, solana tokens.exe, Solana keygen.exe. These are some of the commands that I will be using locally on my machine. So whenever I run that command in your terminal, make sure you are in this folder. If I am running on my machine, let's say Solana space address, the Windows folks need to run, first make sure you're in the right folder, whatever, downloads/bin, and then run ./solana.exe space address. So whatever command I'm running, you have to run the respective executable of it, followed by, whatever flags I'm giving it. All right. Hopefully that's clear enough. And Windows and Linux people are good to go. There are a lot of binaries that you can run, a lot of commands that you can run. Slowly we'll try to run some of these commands and see what exactly do they do. Let me give you a TLDR. Okay, whatever we are doing, whatever we installed locally right now on our machine will give us a bunch of CLIs, specifically Solana, this specific command line interface. What can the Solana command line interface be used for? It can be used to do things like, Solana address. Let's get to what this is very soon. But as you can see, and the other command that we ran a while back was Solana rent. How much rent do I need to pay for this many bytes of data? So these are sort of again under the hood RPC calls. I repeat, these are still HTTP calls that go to an RPC server. Whenever I run, not Solana address, but let's say Solana rent 134080. It actually may or may not be RPC call. It might be calculating it locally as well. But some of these will hit the RPC server. Some of these will, just run locally and spit out some output for you. Why do we need these command line interfaces? Specifically for today's class, we need one of these called the Solana dash token CLI, which as the name suggests, would let us create some tokens. What are tokens? We will get to eventually, but all of these are useful. For example, there's this Solana test validator CLI. If I run this locally, Solana dash test dash validator, it'll start the Solana blockchain locally on my machine. What is the CLI? Solana test validator. It means run a validator on my machine, run a small mini blockchain on my machine. And as you can see, it'll give me an RPC URL. Here, आपकी जो locally blockchain चल रही है, this local blockchain that is running on your machine, here is the RPC URL for that specific, local blockchain. So what does the Solana test validator CLI let you do? Even though we won't be using this today, but it lets you run the blockchain locally, so that if you want to test anything, if you want to, airdrop yourself some tokens, you can do this on this local validator that you have running, local blockchain that you have running. There are also DevNet and testnet blockchains that are already running that we can also use. But just to give an idea, this is another CLI that you have access to. All right, let's maybe tinker a little bit with some of these CLIs before we proceed to the next slide. The next slide is on the Web2 data model and the Web3 data model. Before that, let's play a little bit with this Solana CLI. Okay? First command to try out here locally is Solana address. This will most probably not work for some of you. So before that, run this specific command, Solana dash keygen new. That is it. Solana dash keygen space new. For me, it says that you already have something over here. For you, it most probably won't say it. It says refusing to overwrite this specific file. Basically, this lets you generate a new key pair. That is what Solana keygen means. Okay, generate a new key, generate a new public private key pair. We have done this in the past in wallets over here. We did this in a web-based wallet. You can also do this using a CLI. You can use a command line interface to create a public private key pair. The command to run to do that is this, but for me, it's not happening because I already have a key pair over here. So let me just move this to a different file and now run it. What did I do? I ran this command to copy from this specific location over to id5.json. This is usually where your private key is stored. This is usually where if you ever download malware on your machine, first place it will look at is here. Okay, yahan pe what exact private key is present, and they'll try to pull it. So this specific directory is the default directory for storing a key pair on Solana if you have the Solana CLI locally. Of course, by default on your Mac machine, this is not taken. But when you install the Solana CLI, then you can, generate a new key pair very similar to how we were generating it over here. Now, the one that is generated here remains inside the browser. The one that is generated here remains inside this folder over here, or this file over here. If I run Solana-keygen space new, it still says this because I copied, I did not move. So let me delete this file, or as you can see, it says, give it the force flag. So let me just give it a -- force flag. It asks me for a passphrase. Don't worry about what this is. Press enter. It says, this is your public key. And of course, there is a private key associated with it. This is the mnemonic for it. The BIP39 passphrase to recover your key pair is this right here. So what did Solana keygen new -- force do for me? It generated a new wallet, very similar to the wallet that we had been creating here. But this one stores data inside the browser. This has a whole different use case to interact with dApps. What are dApps? We will get to eventually, don't worry. But this is a different wallet. This is a different wallet that I have just created. To be able to create that, make sure you have the Solana CLI locally, and you can run this command. When you run this command, it will generate a new key pair for you. I'm just generating and overwriting my old ones. So if I run this again, it will generate a new one and overwrite my old public private key pair. If I look at this id.json file, I can actually see my private key in the form of a bunch of bytes. This is my private key for this newly generated wallet. This is the public key. This is the private key. I shared my private key with you, which is why, if I put some Solana in here, you will be able to pull it. And the best part is, since wallets can be used anywhere, I can take this private key. I can go to Phantom. I can click on plus. I can click on import private key. Harkirat local private. Local is good enough. Paste this over here and import. You will see I was able to import my this locally created wallet in Phantom as well. What is a wallet? A wallet is just a key pair, a public and a private key. I have my private key here on my machine stored in /users/harkiratsingh/.config/solana/id.json. You have your own. Try to take this private key and import it inside Phantom. Go to your name and then, plus, and then import private key and paste the private key over here. You will be able to see this wallet in Phantom. You can do the same in Backpack. You can do the same in, any wallet that you want. This is the basics of it, blockchains. If you have a key pair, you can use it in any wallet. But where do we want to use it? We want to use it locally. We want to use it using the command line interface of Solana. So let's see how does this become useful. How can I use this? First, run the command Solana address, and you will notice it is now returning this address right here. It is saying कि भाई locally this is your configured address. Whatever commands you run over here, whatever you try to do with this Solana command line interface, I will be using this specific public key, and I know the private key is over here. So by default, Solana is picking my private key from here for this CLI. Whenever this CLI is being triggered, whatever I'm running Solana address, it is like, अच्छा हाँ यहाँ से उठाता हूँ मैं. It is picking it from here. You can actually run the command Solana config get, and it will show you a bunch of things over here. Specifically, the config file. Where is it pointing? /users/harkiratsingh/.config Solana CLI config.yaml. So this is where it is specified what is the current private key that is being used. What was this config.yaml? Let's see. If you look at this config.yaml, it says key pair path is this thing right here. So this specific path is where my key pair is getting picked from. And a bunch of other things are present here, specifically, this RPC URL and WebSocket URL. Let's discuss this next. This is also super important. You might be seeing something else over here locally on your machine. So let's discuss what this is. To recap, what have we done until now? In this specific section, we understood number one, how to install the Solana CLI. Number two, how to generate a key pair, how to import it in Phantom. And number three, Solana space address to see your public key, and then Solana config get that returns you a bunch of config for your local Solana CLI. And specifically, we understand this much. This is where the config file is. This is where the key pair path is. We don't yet understand these two, and these might be different on your machine. Let's try to understand these next, and let's try to understand the difference between mainnet, devnet, and testnet next. All right, let's understand about RPC URLs next. I hope we remember this from the old classes. Okay, RPC URLs are a way for you, a browser, a client, a wallet, to interact with the blockchain. If this is the blockchain where a bunch of miners are doing 10 different things, maintaining all the balances, this is the user, be it, sorry about that, be it a wallet similar to Phantom, or be it a web-based wallet, that we had created, or a wallet like this. The way I get these balances, which is whatever, 1 sol, 0 sol, 2 sol, whenever my internet comes back up, the way that happens is that I send a request to an RPC URL. If you remember, we went to Alchemy last week, we went to Alchemy and we got ourselves an RPC URL. We went to this alchemy.com website and got ourselves an RPC URL that we said we can use to send requests to the blockchain. If you remember some of the requests were somewhere along the lines of, let me quickly open Postman and show you. If you remember, the requests were somewhere on the lines of, okay, what is the balance of this specific account? And if I send this request, it returns me value null, which means this specific wallet is empty, does not have any balance. But if I choose a different wallet of mine that hopefully has some money, let's say this account 2 right here, if I send this as an argument in this request to this RPC URL, what am I doing? I'm sending a request to this RPC URL through a device or through an app called Postman. And this is the arguments that I'm sending to it. Here, give me the account details of this specific account. If I send this, it returns me here, this specific address has, where is it? Lampports. These many lampports, executable set to false, has no data inside it. Owner, as I said, is something we will discuss eventually. Space that it takes is 0. So RPC URLs are how you query the blockchain, or how you ask the blockchain about anything, including what is the current balance of this user. Now comes the concept of mainnet, devnet, and testnet. If you ever want to create a test application, do you think you will be deploying this directly on the blockchain? As we saw a while back, if you want to take some space on the blockchain, you need to put up some Solana as rent. What if you don't have Solana? What if you're Garib just like me? In that case, it is a better idea for you to use a devnet blockchain. What does devnet mean? It means this is developer network. This is the primary Solana blockchain. This is where real Solana is stored. But there is also a test blockchain that people are running. If you've ever worked in a company, you might have heard of staging, dev, prod environments. Similarly, this devnet is a dev environment. This is also a blockchain. This also has an accompanying RPC URL. You can still send requests to this RPC URL, but it will not hit the main blockchain. It will not hit the main blockchain. It will hit this small mini devnet blockchain that is running. And it will return you the response from here. Why would you want to use devnet? If you want to do testing, if you are just deploying your applications, you don't have money to buy real Solana, you can airdrop. I repeat, you can airdrop yourself devnet Solana. You might have heard of this term, airdrop. What does airdrop mean? It means drop me some Solana for free. Can you drop yourself real Solana for free? Of course not. Then everyone would do that and everyone would be rich. But on devnet, you can just get some Solana for free. You can airdrop yourself Solana. And why is that useful? That is useful because in case you want to deploy an application to the Solana blockchain, or to this devnet blockchain, you have some SOL in your account. Let's try this example out. I'm speaking a lot of things and not really showing you how to do this. So let's see how can you do this. How can you, number one, connect to the devnet blockchain. Number two, airdrop yourself some Solana. Do it with me. Step 1. What did we do? We generated a empty key pair. What command did I run? I will run it again. Solana-keygen new -- force. It created an empty public key for me, an empty public private key pair for me. I have this wallet of mine, and where is the private key of this wallet? This is the public key it showed me. Where is the private key? The private key is here. For you, it will be, on a specific file on your folder or on your machine. Let me take this private key and let me open this in Phantom, which is a more, UI visible wallet. So we can easily, track things here. If I go to Phantom, click on plus, select import private key and paste the private key here. Name it local2. Then I see the same public key over here. If you look at it, 5DXE. What is the local one? Local one is also 5DXE. How much Solana does it have? It has 0 Solana. Can you guess why? Of course, it will have 0 Solana, right? Whenever you create a fresh public private key pair, it won't have a lot of Solana in there already. It has 0 Solana as expected. And now you want to deploy an application. You want to play a little bit with the blockchain. You cannot do that on the mainnet blockchain. Yahan pe you cannot airdrop yourself Solana. But on this other mini blockchain, you can. Question is, how can you change the RPC URL to DevNet? What is the RPC URL? It is just here requests. When I ask for balance, don't ask this guy. Don't ask mainnet. Don't ask the main blockchain. Please ask the secondary blockchain. So how can I in Phantom change? कि यार main blockchain से मत पूछ. Don't ask the main blockchain. Please ask the DevNet blockchain, the test blockchain. The way to do that in Phantom is click over here, click on settings, click on developer settings, turn on test mode. What does it say? Applies to balances and app connections. Testnet mode. We want कि Solana connects to Solana DevNet. What do we want? Here Solana don't connect to the production Solana. Connect to Solana DevNet. And now if I go back to my wallet, I still see 0 balance. I still see no Solana in my account. But as I said, on DevNet, you can airdrop yourself some Solana just for testing, right? This is just a dummy blockchain. If you have Solana in here, doesn't mean anything. It is giving you a warning also. You are currently on testnet mode. So do I have any Solana in this wallet on mainnet? I don't. Do I have any Solana on this wallet on testnet? I don't. Can I try this out locally? Yes. If on my terminal, I run Solana address, it tells me this is my address. If I run Solana balance, it tells me I have 0 Sol. So from my terminal also I checked. From my terminal also I sent a request to DevNet or mainnet. What do you think? Where do you think this request went out? Just run Solana config get. For me, I have set my RPC URL to api.devnet.solana.com. So for me, to bhai, the request went to DevNet. The request went to here. If I want, I can change that. I can be like Solana config set --rpc -url api.mainnet-beta.solana.com. Now I am connecting to the production Solana blockchain, the real Solana blockchain. If I run this Solana config set RPC URL, this thing right here, it says RPC URL is not valid. Just --URL is good enough. What did I run? I ran Solana config set --URL, the mainnet URL. Harkirat, can I replace this with Alchemy URL? Yes, you can. You can go to alchemy.com, get yourself, your own mainnet RPC URL. There are many RPC URLs, right? You can get your own as well. So you can interact with your own RPC URL, or you can interact with one that Solana gives you for free, which is, this specific URL, api.mainnet-beta.solana.com. So this is the one that I have pointed to. How much money do I have on mainnet? How much money do I have on this wallet on mainnet? If I go back to the settings and turn off developer mode, how much money did I have? It's a fresh wallet. It has 0 money here as well. Doesn't matter on mainnet. Doesn't matter if it is here on the production Solana blockchain, or doesn't matter if it is here on the DevNet Solana blockchain. I have 0 Solana in both the places, but I can airdrop myself some Solana on DevNet. So let me switch this to developer settings, testnet on Solana DevNet, and locally also on my terminal, I'm going to run Solana config set RPC URL is api.devnet.solana.com, so that I'm connected to devnet and not mainnet, so that I'm connected to this mini blockchain. I want to send request that reaches the small mini devnet blockchain and not the production blockchain. How much money do I have right now on devnet? 0. But I can run the command, and this is where the first time you will see the benefit of the Solana CLI. I ran the command Solana airdrop 1, and what did it say? Requesting airdrop of 1 sol. It said signature this thing, 1 sol received. Now if I run Solana balance, how much balance do I have on devnet? How much balance do I have over here? I have 1 sol. If I open Phantom on devnet and keep doing that for 2 minutes, just wait for a minute here. There you go. 1 sol I have on devnet as well. On Phantom, locally, it doesn't matter. I have it in my public key, right? On the Solana blockchain, it is clearly stated now कि यार ये जो public key है ना, this public key right here has 1 sol. I can in fact go to explorer.solana.com and change this from mainnet to devnet. I repeat, go to Explorer, change it to devnet. And here if I paste the same public key, what does it say? It says I have 1 sol over here that I got through this specific transaction a minute ago. I airdropped myself 1 sol on the devnet blockchain, not on the mainnet blockchain. यहाँ पे I did not, यहाँ पे I cannot, यहाँ पे no one can. If you are able to airdrop here, then you can make yourself very rich. So you get the idea. This is a test blockchain. You can airdrop yourself Solana here. That is exactly what I did here, and I got back 1 sol. If I go here, now on this devnet blockchain, Harkirat has 1 sol, or more specifically, this public key has 1 sol on this devnet blockchain. That is the difference between mainnet and devnet. And similarly, there is also a testnet, which is a little more unstable. If you see over here, you'll find a third network called testnet. But the one that we want to worry about is local development. What if I want to run the blockchain locally? What if I want something like this? Okay, on your Mac machine, you have Solana running just for testing purposes, right? Not for any other reason, for testing purposes. How can I run that? What should the RPC URL be in that case? And the answer is, if you remember a while back, I told you about the Solana test validator. If you run this command will start a small Solana test validator locally. This thing right here, it will give you an RPC URL also. Okay, yaar, हमने Solana चला दिया है. You have a local Solana instance running, and this is the RPC URL for it. 127.0.0.1:8899. This, for those of you who don't know, is similar to localhost :8899. Basically, on this port on my machine, Solana RPC is available. I can send a request to this Solana RPC, and it will interact with the local blockchain that I have right now. It is an empty blockchain, right? This blockchain doesn't do anything. I haven't sent any transaction on this blockchain, which is why let me run this here in one terminal. Let me open another terminal, and here, what is the config right now? Config get. It says कि यार RPC URL is this devnet URL. Can I replace this? Can I run Solana config set -- URL? And what is our local RPC URL? Locally on my machine, where is the local RPC running? It is this. Has it been replaced over here? If I run Solana config get, does it return this? Yes, it does. Now when I do Solana balance, what does it say? 0 sol again. Why? Because यहाँ पे तो कभी airdrop किया ही नहीं. I never airdropped myself some Solana on this local Solana validator that I'm running. I did over here on devnet. I didn't over here on this local Solana validator, which is why if I run Solana balance, it says 0. But what if I run Solana airdrop 1? Of course, I'll be able to airdrop myself some sol, right? This though is running on my machine only. मेरी machine, मेरी blockchain है. What I can do whatever I want, including airdropping myself some SOL. So I was able to send myself some SOL. Now if I run Solana balance, it says 1 SOL is present on this address. If I go to this explorer right here and select custom RPC URL, which defaults to this only, localhost 8899, which is, you know, the one that we had, localhost 8899 or 127.01.0.1 same one only. And now if I refresh and paste that specific address, what is our address? Solana address. It's the same one only. It says 1 SOL over here. Even though I'm connected to my local RPC URL, this website is now not connecting to mainnet. It is not connecting here. It is not connecting here. It is connecting to this testnet that I have running on my machine. And it says yaar yahan pe 1 SOL to is present. If I airdrop another SOL, I should now have how much Solana over here? 3 SOL. That is exactly what I have over here. I was able to airdrop myself this Solana so that I can, you know, create smart contracts, deploy smart contracts, do 10 different things. So airdropping on testnet ka purpose is so that you can, you know, test out your contracts locally first, then maybe on DevNet, and then eventually push them on mainnet when you are ready. So these are just 3 different environments, very similar to, as I said, staging and, you know, dev and prod. If you've ever worked in a big company, where, you know, you test the code locally. If it works, you test it on DevNet. If it works, then you deploy it to mainnet. The difference between all 3 is this runs locally on your machine. You can airdrop yourself some Solana here. This runs on some, you know, bunch of miners are doing this, but, you know, these miners, this doesn't have any wajood. If you have some SOL here, doesn't mean you're rich. You can't sell that SOL for any substantial money or any money. This is just for testing purposes. This is not running on your own machine. This is running on some, you know, internet machines. And here also you can airdrop yourself some SOL. Mainnet may, of course, you cannot airdrop yourself some SOL. Very secure, a lot of miners all around the world running this specific blockchain. These are the 3 environments that exist on Solana. Ethereum has something similar. We'll get there when we reach, but, you know, there's a small hint over here. When I selected settings and selected developer settings and turned this on, it said Ethereum also, it moved to a different environment. So even ETH has a testnet environment. But for now, let's turn this off, you know, not confuse ourselves. If you are ever trying this locally, let's revert this back to mainnet. Locally, let's revert to DevNet. I repeat, locally, I would revert to DevNet for all the things that are coming from here. I would turn off the local validator. So locally, go back to DevNet. Make sure before the next slide, this is what the config looks like. You are connected to / sending requests to DevNet. So that whatever we do from here, which is going to be, you know, creating some tokens, things like these, you are able to do them on DevNet, and you don't have to worry about real Solana, buying real Solana. You can just deploy it over here and see everything without having to buy real SOL. All right, let's move on to the next section. What is the next section? Probably is the data model in the Web2 world and in the Web3 world. Let's get to that next. All right. Let's understand probably the most difficult bit for today's class. We're going to understand about the Web2 data model and the Web3 data model, specifically the Solana data model. Kick things off with the Web2 data model. What are we learning throughout all of these slides? We are actually learning about smart contracts or programs. And what are smart contracts? If I had to explain it to a 5-year-old, smart contracts are backend applications deployed on the blockchain. This is what a smart contract is at a high level. What does that mean? That means if today you want to create a simple Web2 startup, what does Web2 mean? Something that doesn't involve, you know, too much blockchains, decentralization, anything. How would you deploy this application? Have you ever tried deploying it? I have a video on YouTube that covers this in a little more detail, various ways to deploy a full stack application. The answer is you deploy your backend application on a cloud provider like AWS. And most probably you have a database which is separate from this backend instance where you store your data. This is how Usually Web 2 applications are deployed. Now you can change the cloud provider, you can use fancy constructs like Kubernetes here, but high level, you have what's called a virtual machine. What does a virtual machine mean? It means it's basically a machine that is created on top of another machine. Don't worry about virtual machine. Basically, you rent a machine somewhere around the world. You deploy your Node.js code over here. So if you've written some, Express code, if you know Express by now, we're learning about it in the Web 2 classes. If you've written some Express code, you put that code over here and you run node index.js. You start your Express application or your backend application. That is how you deploy in the Web 2 world. And of course, you have a database where data is eventually stored. What does data mean, Harkirat? It means things like, if you are building, let's say, a to-do application, data means things like the user ID or the user details and the to-do details. These are the two things that will be stored in the database. Now, there are various things like SQL, NoSQL, relational databases that we will eventually cover in the Web 2 cohort. So don't worry about this if you don't understand. High level, how do you deploy in the Web 2 world? How do you deploy today? If you create your own, let's say to-do application and you want to deploy it on the internet, you want it hosted at todo.harkirat.com or, todoapp.com. How will you deploy it on the internet? You will rent an AWS machine. You will start to pay them, some, let's say $10 a month. And this is where your code will be deployed. This is where your index.js code will be deployed. Whenever someone goes to todoist.com or, whatever your app is, that request reaches this server somehow. And, some data gets fetched from the database. The data gets returned to the user. That is how in the Web 2 world, you run and deploy applications. But what are we discussing today? Okay, in the Web 3 world, if you are creating a Web 3 application, how do you deploy a smart contract? What is the equivalent of this code and this data in the Web 3 world? And more specifically, what we're discussing today is the Solana world. How does similarly code and data get stored in case of Solana? Can you guess already? Little bit we understood. We discussed about various types of accounts. Ek to normal account. Ek an account that has executable set to true. So can I say, after you have written your index.js code, you deploy it here. After you have written your smart contract, we haven't discussed how to write smart contracts on Solana yet. But after you have written it, can you deploy it to a account where executable is set to true? Is that how you deploy a program on Solana? Is that how you deploy a smart contract on Solana? Is that where the code is deployed? The answer is yes. Again, to show you the example, what was the example that we were seeing? We were seeing the token program. I kept on saying this is the token program. If I copy this address and go to a more simpler explorer, paste it over here. What does it say? It says, yaar jo token program hai na, the token program, whatever that smart contract is, just like to-do app is an app, token program is also an app. This app takes this much bytes. Iska sara code jo hai na, is account mein hai. This account stores the code of this, and this is the amount of Solana that is stored as rent exemption for these many amount of bytes. That is how you deploy a smart contract. This is how you deploy it in the Web 2 world. You deploy it on an AWS machine. This is how you deploy it on the Web 3 world. You deploy it on the internet, you deploy it in an account in Solana. In Ethereum, this is different. But in Solana, you deploy it on, a public address that looks like this. That is where your code is stored, but there is no data stored over here. Whatever this program is, this is the token program, right? I kept on saying this is the token program. Whatever data it needs to store, not the code, not this, whatever data it needs to store is actually stored in different accounts. I repeat, whatever data it wants to store, if it wants to share users details or, some to do, it is not stored in this account. It creates a fresh account. Yahan pe it stores some data and of course some lamp ports. This is how data is stored on the Solana blockchain. It is different on Ethereum, but on Solana it is complicated. It is complicated. The data model on Solana is a module in itself for us to learn, because Ethereum में it is much easier. If you remember the smart contract of Ethereum, I showed you कि यार Ethereum smart contract में तो यहीं पे counter variable डाल दिया. Put the counter variable over here. Define a function, increase, decrease. They sort of exist right next to each other. The code as well as the data exists sort of together. But Solana में that doesn't happen. In case of Solana, the code exists in a separate account. And whenever you want to store some data on the blockchain, let's say this is a to-do application, the code of the to-do application is stored in one account, just like this. And every individual data, for example, user one's details is stored over here. User two's details is stored over here. User one's to-do one is stored over here. User one's to-do two is stored over here. That is how Solana expects you to store data in separate accounts. Can you guess a few benefits of doing this? You might ask, why not store all the data in a single very long account? Why are you creating different accounts for different users for different to-dos? If you've done a little bit of SQL, then you would remember that this is how you store data in the Web 2 world. You have, let's say, this is a bad example here, but let's say you have a to-do application. Then what would the database look like? The database in case of SQL would look something like this. You will have a users table and you will have a to-dos table. And users table would have rows. If you've done a little bit of SQL, if you've heard of MySQL, then you might know about this thing called rows and columns. So it has a bunch of rows like user ID and let's say user ka name and let's say user email, things like these. It'll store things like if your user one signs up on your platform, you will have their user ID stored over here. Let's say the user ID is 1. You will have their name stored here. Let's say Harkirat. You will have their email stored here. Let's say asd@gmail.com. And you will have multiple such rows. For every user that signs up, all you have to do is create a new row in this SQL table. If you don't understand this, when we reach databases, you will hopefully understand this a little bit better. Okay, this is how you store data in the Web 2 world. This whole thing is a database. This very big database has two tables, one for storing the user data and then one for storing, let's say, the to-do data. Okay, this user ID has a to-do and the title of the to-do is this, and this field represents whether or not this to-do is done already. So user ID 1 has a to-do called go to gym, and this is done, which is why this done field is set to true. And then there could be another row over here. Okay, there is another to-do for the user with ID 2 and he wants to eat food, and this is not done, so done is set to false. This is how your data might look like in the Web 2 world for a to-do application. Adding a new user is as simple as adding a new entry here. Adding a new to-do is as simple as adding a new entry here. Deleting a user is as simple as deleting a row from here. Fairly simple. Single SQL command, if you've ever heard about insert SQL commands or delete SQL commands. In the Web 3 world, it gets complicated. More specifically in the Solana world. Solana says, whenever a new user signs up on your platform, create a new account for them. Create a new account for them. And yahan pe, in this account has a data field, right? If you remember, every account has data field and lamp ports. If I open another example over here of accounts on Solana, there was an account that had both data and lamp ports. If I open this in the other explorer, this account has wrong one, sorry. This is a program, this is this one. This account has some data, 282 bytes of data and some Solana. So that is how Solana expects you to store data. Okay, bhai, acha, make a new one. If a new user signs up on their platform, make a new account for them. Yahan pe store their username, email, password, whatever you want. If they create a new to-do, then create a new account for them and store their to-do information over there inside this data field. That is how Solana expects you to store data. Program is stored over here, just like program is stored in AWS. Program is stored in a single account. Data, every row over here is stored in separate accounts. Can you merge them? You can. You can have a one single very long account, but that's a bad idea. Can you guess why? And $20 if this was a live class, if you would have guessed why. Very simple UX reason for it. Take a pause and try to guess. The answer is, when your user signs up on your platform, when they come, you can tell them, you can sign up, but you have to pay this much Solana in fees. Because we will create an account for you. हम तुम्हारे लिए account बना रहे हैं भाई. We will not pay this. The program developer will not pay this. They will delegate कि ये account तुम्हारा बन रहा है. Pay the fees for this. So user one will pay the fees for their account. If this account is for user one and this account is for user one, the Solana that is kept over here can be delegated to the user. If you have a single long account, then it will be very hard for you to figure out where you get Solana from, who Solana you put where. But here, these two accounts are for user one. This, and let's say this, and this account is for user two, and let's say this account is for user three. User three has just signed up, has no to-dos. User one has signed up and has one to-do. User two has signed up, has two to-dos right now. Whenever they create a to-do, आप उनको बोलो भाई fees तू ही देगा. You are the one who will pay the fees. The program will not pay the fees. The user who is creating a new account, who is creating a new to-do, will be the one who will pay for individual accounts. That is why this is good UX. So that, because every time you're storing data, varna to user will come on your platform, create thousands of to-dos. Who will pay for it? User should pay for it, which is why you create individual accounts like these for the user. And say if you want to sign up, okay, there you go. I have put your information here, pay for its rent. If you want to sign up, pay for its rent. If you want to create a to-do, pay for its rent. When the user signs out, when the user deletes their account, they can redeem this rent as well. We can close this account for them, return their Solana to them. Or, if the protocol is shady, then the user will be like, okay, we have deleted your code and, keep the Solana with themselves. But usually, if a user signs up, they pay for their account. If the user leaves, then you just return them their Solana. This is called closing an account. If the user ever wants to, let's say, not use our platform anymore, they can get back their rent in their original account. So do we understand the data model on Solana? How are these accounts created? How is this account related? How do you know this is user one's account and user one's to do? Is a different question. Here we have to learn a bit about program derived addresses. We will get to this eventually, most probably not in this class. So there is something called PDAs. I have a YouTube video that's very nice that explains it and covers a very similar example. This time let me find it. I wasn't able to in the live class. I have a 1 hour video on this. This wasn't part of the playlist, which is why I couldn't find it. Someone please post this in the description or look at it over here. It's called Programming on Solana, PDAs and CPIs. So feel free to ignore this, but spend some time over here if you already want to prepare for PDAs, because it's going to be hard whenever we reach there. Basically covers something like this only. How can you create multiple accounts for a single, or this is CPI, but wait, something like this. This is a program and this is where the user's profile information is stored. This is where the user's address is stored. If you're creating an e-commerce website, this is where you'll store their profile information. This is where you store their address. If they ask for a refund, this is where you'll store it. These are all PDAs. Even the one that we were talking about and the ones that we will use today are also PDAs. Let me quickly open it. All of these would eventually become PDAs. So, this video covers it fairly well. Feel free to go through it, with some diagrams and shit. So very good video, underrated video, I would say. 5K views, very, very surprising. But yeah, I will leave it at that. With that, we will move on to the next section now. We'll start to create a token. Before that, I will explain what exactly a token is. And then we will go and understand how do you create a token using the Solana CLI. How do you create a token using JavaScript? Can you create it in various other languages? We will probably ignore the slides. Let's not get into PDAs yet. Then we'll understand about the token 2022 program and attach some metadata to our token so that it finally appears, in Phantom as a proper token. All right, let's get into that next. All right, finally we have reached the crux of today's session, which is number 1, what exactly is a token, and number 2, how do you create one? This is a high-level architectural diagram. It shares that the crux of all of this is a Solana token program Just like you can create your own Uber Solana contract, Uber Solana program, to do Solana program, the folks at Solana, the engineers at Solana, have written a Solana token program and they have deployed it on the Solana blockchain. Again, this is an account on the Solana blockchain. We have already seen this account if you remember. Let me show you one more time, but I hope you remember the one program account that we were looking at in slide number 3 was the token program. I kept on saying this is the token program. This has been deployed by whom? This has been deployed by the Solana engineers for other people to use. So if you ever want to create a token, and I'll get to what a token is very soon, but if you ever want to create a token, engineers at Solana said, KR, we have deployed a contract for you. Isko use karo. Use this to create an account, which is called the token mint. Again, we will get to what this is. And once you have created a token mint, let your users create, individual accounts, which are called associated token accounts. Too much jargon I'm throwing at you. Stay with me for 5 minutes more, you'll understand it. But this is the architecture of how to create a token on Solana, which is different from Ethereum. On Ethereum, you deploy your own contract. On Ethereum, if you want to ever create your own token, which again, I'll come to what a token is very soon, you will deploy your own contract many times. First time you create a token, you will deploy a contract. Second time you create a token, you will deploy a contract. On Solana, there is a single token program that is already deployed. Whoever wants to create a token, just create an account on it, bro. Just create an account on it. You are good to go. You don't have to deploy your own smart contract or your own program. So fundamentally, Ethereum and Solana are different on how they create tokens. The question before we get into this complicated architecture is, what exactly is a token? Let's get into that first. Tokens are actually one of the biggest use cases on blockchains, if not the biggest. If I'm being honest, USDC and USDT are, two tokens or two coins that have actually found product market fit in crypto. What are these coins? We will get to. But token, can you guess what a token is? We saw this in the live class. Okay, there is this website called CoinMarketCap. I repeat, there is this website called CoinMarketCap. What does it say? Okay, the market cap of coins. I will show you how big a coin is. It says Bitcoin has the maximum market cap. I think that's like 100 billion or a trillion. Most probably a trillion only. Yeah, I think that's $1 trillion. Ethereum has $301 billion. Solana has $68 billion, so on and so forth. What does market cap mean? It means that total number of Solana that exists, which is this much right here. If you multiply by the supply of Solana, if you multiply this number by this number, that's the total market cap. Total Solana that exists. If you multiply by the current price of Solana, this is the total market cap of Solana. Same for Bitcoin, same for Ethereum. These are what are called tokens. This is what people speculate on from time to time, right? Okay, oh, let me speculate on the price of Ethereum. I will buy it, it will shoot up. Or I will short it, it will shoot down. That is what a token is. Or what a coin is. Some people call it coin, some people call it token. The question is, how can you create your own? If today you want to create your own token and deploy it on the blockchain, or make sure it appears over here. Make sure Kirat coin appears over here somewhere. It might not be on, but page 2, page 3, page 4. On some page, Kirat coin exists. How will you do it? The answer is by using this token program. You can do one of two things actually. Bitcoin is a blockchain of its own. Ethereum is a blockchain of its own. Solana is a blockchain of its own. But Tether that you see over here is not a blockchain in itself. It is a program on Ethereum. It is a program on Solana as well. It is a program on a bunch of these chains. How can this be a program on multiple chains? We will get to, don't worry. But the key thing to take away is that this is not a blockchain in itself. The folks at Tether and the folks at USDC, these people haven't created a network of machines. They are not like, haan bhai, if you ever want to, buy or sell Tether, or, send Tether to your friend, they don't have a Tether USDT chain of its own. I repeat, USDT, the coin that you saw over there, doesn't have a bunch of machines, miners constantly doing consensus and you sending a transaction on the USDT blockchain. This does not exist. This does not exist. USDT and USDC are not blockchains in themselves. Is ETH a blockchain? Yes, ETH is a blockchain. They have a bunch of miners all around the world that are constantly doing consensus. Is Sol a blockchain? Yes, Harkirat. Is Bitcoin a blockchain? Yes, Harkirat. But USDT and USDC and a bunch of other coins that you see below, they are not blockchains. They are not blockchains in themselves. They say that a very nice Ethereum blockchain exists. Very nice Solana blockchain exists. So Solana and Ethereum already have a bunch of miners. Solana and Ethereum already have a bunch of miners. Why can't we be a smart contract over here? Why can't USDC or USDT or some other token, let's say Bonk, or if you've ever traded meme coins, Daddy, or Mommy, or what was that called, Pepe? All of these are just could be smart contract, could be something else. In case of Ethereum, they are a smart contract. In case of Solana, as I said, they are just an account created from the Solana token program. The engineers at Solana said, "Yaar, ये तो बहुत important use case है." They said this is a very important use case. Creating tokens. They knew that Ethereum pe there were too many tokens, so Solana pe bhi there will be too many tokens. So they said, we will create a smart contract. We will deploy a smart contract. This green thing that you see over here is a smart contract written by the Solana engineers. And USDT or USDC is just an account derived from it. I repeat, it is just an account derived from it. USDT coin, USDT token is not a smart contract in itself. On Ethereum, that happens. As I said, if you want to create a token on the Ethereum blockchain, then Ethereum is also a similar blockchain like this, right? It has a bunch of miners. If you ever want to create USDC token on Ethereum, you will have to deploy your own smart contract here. There is no single token program that exists. Ethereum says कि अच्छा आपको token बनाना है, deploy your own contract. If Bonk on the future wants to deploy or create a token on Ethereum, then they will also have to deploy their own program over here. This is commonly this program. If you already know, what is this program called on Ethereum? This program is called ERC20 program. Even on Ethereum, this was a very popular use case. They realized very soon that ये तो सबको करना है. Everyone wants to create their token. So they created a template. They created a smart contract. They created something that looks like, if you remember, this. They created a program like this. They called it ERC20 and they said कि यार इसको deploy कर लो जिसको भी बनाना है. Whoever wants to create their own token, just deploy. Not this. This is a counter program, but a ERC20 program. They just created one and open sourced it. Anyone who wants to create a token like this can deploy this program on the Ethereum blockchain. If you want to see the exact program also, you can just search for ERC20, maybe GitHub. And here, you will see it has a mapping from an address to a number. That is what a token is, right? This account has this much token. So it has a variable called balances, which is a mapping. Mapping is like a hash map from an address to a number. That is effectively what a token is, right? If you go to any coin market cap, these are the total number of Ethereum in supply. These are the total number of Sol in supply. But like I own, let's say 100 of these. Some other friend of mine owns 1000 Solana. Another friend of mine owns 10,000 Solana, very rich guy. So, in the end, these are distributed amongst various wallets. This Solana is just present in various wallets. So effectively, what is a token program? It is just a program which has a mapping from an account to a number. KR, this, for example, if I open my wallet here, it says I have 10.89 Ethereum. I have the native token, ठीक है, but I don't have USDC, do I? Thought I did. I do have 940. I do have 940 USDC in my account as well. I have this token as well. तो हरकीरत का ये वाला address has 930 USDC. Where is this stored? This is stored actually on the blockchain in a account like this. कि ये USDC, this is a smart contract, the USDC smart contract that is deployed. And here, this hash map has Harkirat's address pointing to 930. That is how the token program is deployed on the Ethereum blockchain. We're not there yet. We don't want to go into Ethereum land, so forget about that. Let's focus on the Solana blockchain. Let's just delete this. There's just a very big contrast if you're coming from the Ethereum world on how tokens are created on Solana, which is why I wanted to share it. But what do we want to see on Solana? We want to see, given the Solana blockchain, Harkirat, and you said that there is already a token program on the Solana blockchain. How can I create my own token on top of it? Do I have to redeploy the token program? No. You can also do that, but let's not go there. That's a little too advanced. You use the token program. If I ever want to come and deploy my own token called Pepe, or let's say, my own token called 100x, what will I do? I will just call a function on this smart contract that will create a new account for me. Of course, this will happen on all the miners, and all the miners will now be like, "ठीक है भाई, there is a new account. There is a new data account. This is a program account, has executable set to true. This is a data account that just has some data and of course some lampposts, which is called the mint account." I repeat, if I create a Pepe token, I will create a mint account for my Pepe token. If you in the future create your own token, you will create a separate mint account for your, whatever that token is. Let's say your name is Raman, so you create your Raman token over here. So on top of this program that already exists, if you ever want to create your own token, you first create a mint account. That is exactly what the diagram had as well. If I go to the original diagram, what did it look like? The original diagram looked something like this. Solana token program at the center. Whoever wants to create their own token, Doggy coin, USDC coin, can create a token mint. What does the word mint mean? It means a bank. Okay, you have created a bank. You have said, here is a new currency called USDC, or here is a new currency called Doggy. This is the mint of it. This person has access to create or mint new tokens. This specific account has access to mint more tokens. What does minting a token mean? Creating a new token. So this specific account can create more tokens and, let other users access them. But how does that happen? How does the user get access to a token is a whole different question. That's, the second level of accounts that you have to create. But do we understand this much? How can you create your own token mint? Let's try this out as well. Let's try to create your own token mint. Maybe before that, let's explore some token mints. Let's see क्या USDT का token mint कैसा दिखता है. How does the USDT token mint look on Solana? So let's search token mint Solana. Let's see if we can find it directly from here. Let's find USDC token mint. Let's find Bonk token mint. You will see. Let's again open it on the other explorer. This might be a fake USDT token as well. A lot of people have, fake copies of these USDT and USDT. So I just Googled it. So there's a high probability this is the wrong one also. So, just for security purposes, if you're ever buying, make sure you're buying the right one and not the wrong one. All right. I opened all three of these in the Solana Explorer. Let's explore it. What does it say? It says, this is a token account. This is a normal account only. Ye to bas UI is showing it in such a fancy way. It is a normal account. It is derived from this token contract. It is a normal account only. Does it have some data? It does. Now it is not showing it here because it's just showing it in a very nice fashion, Let's see if Solscan shows that. They're not. How can I see the exact? Oh, I can see it by sending a request here. I can go to Postman and I can say यार इसकी details देना मुझे. This account, can you give me the details of this accounts? And what does it return? It returns that it has this much lamp port and is taking 82 bytes. So what did I do? I sent a request here because I don't want to see such a pretty thing. SoulScan is a competitive explorer. They said यार हम तो एकदम साफ साफ दिखाएंगे तुम्हें. We are showing you such a clean UI कि this token का name is USDT. This token's owner is this token program. And this token has 6 decimals. We'll get to what decimals are very soon. This token has these many holders. But I don't want to see this. I want to see the raw data in here. So for that, I sent a request to API mainnetbeta.solana.com. यार give me the details of this account. It returned me कि यार ये है data उसमें stored. This is the data stored over there. It is not executable. It should not be executable, right? What should be executable? This token program is executable. These are simple accounts. They don't need to be executable. These are built on top of this. These contain things like the name of this account, supply, decimals, things like these. So they don't have to be executable, which is why this USDT token, if I fetch the details, it is not executable. How much space does it take? It takes 82 bytes of space, which is why there is some amount of lamp ports in there. Its owner is this token program. What is owner we will get to, but slowly hopefully you're building some intuition for owners as well. As I'm building these diagrams, can you see I'm pointing this here, I'm pointing this here. So there is this concept of ownership we'll get to very soon, not here but later. This is nothing to do with ownership in Rust, very different concept in Solana. But yeah, feel free to ignore this field for now. We understand lamp ports, we understand space. Let's try a different one. Let's see this USDC token. How much space does this guy take? Let's see. It also takes 82 bytes. How much space does Bonk take? This also takes 82 bytes. Can you guess why? They're all storing the same thing only, right? In the end, इस account में store क्या हो रहा है? What is getting stored over here and here? It just stores how many decimal it has. That is it really. Even the token name isn't stored in this account. So anytime you create a token, the supply कितने print हो गए अभी तक? For example, what is the supply of this doggy token? It is 20. What is the supply of USDC here? 20 plus 30 plus 100, 150. So this supply, the number of decimals this token has is what is stored here. The name of the token is actually stored somewhere else. We'll get to what that is. But this is constant only. आप ये बना लो कि ये बना लो. It just needs to store 2 numbers. It just needs to store 2 numbers, which is why the number of bytes here is same for every token mint account. Do we understand token mint now? Maybe we do, maybe we don't. Let me recap. Okay, whenever you want to create your own token program, I repeat, whenever you want to create your own token, there is already a token program that exists. You create an account on top of it. You create what's called a mint account. And if you create 10 different tokens, you will create 10 different mint accounts. All of these have the same size. We already saw a few of these tokens deployed on the Solana blockchain. Question is, how can you create your own this? इसके आगे तो अभी हम बढ़ ही नहीं रहे. We are not getting to the next layer. How can users own this token? How can you create your own token mint? इन्होंने तो बना लिए. These guys have built their token mints. How can I create my own token mint? Well, thankfully, the program is already written. You just need to call a function on the program. And even more thankfully, the Solana CLI that you installed, provides you a Solana dash. Let's see what the CLI is. SPL dash token, my bad, not Solana dash token, SPL dot dash token, this CLI. What is the CLI it provides you? SPL stands for Solana Programming Library dash token. Why does it say Solana Programming Library? Because there are some programs that Solana owns. They say कि यार बनाने को तो इसको कोई भी बना सकता है, anyone can make it, but ideally we would want to own them. That is what the Solana Programming Library stands for. In fact, if you go to GitHub Solana Program Library, you will find all of these programs over here. The token program is just one program over here. There are a lot of programs that Solana itself owns. They say कि यार हमें ही deploy करने दो ये. We will deploy these programs, which is why it is prefixed with SPL dash token, okay, Solana programming library. Token CLI. This lets you interact with the contract. This CLI, this command line interface, lets you interact with this smart contract over here. Whenever this is the Solana blockchain, it has a contract, it has a few of these, mint accounts. And this is my Mac machine below. Whenever I run a command here like SPL-token and let's say create token, what will happen is this will send a request to, can you guess where? This will send a request to an RPC URL, which will send the request on the blockchain, which will understand that acha, this person wants to create a new token, and it will create a new mint for me. That is the series of steps that happen when I call SPL-token create token. When I run this command, what happens? I send an RPC call, which calls a function on this program. And what does this function do? It creates a new mint account for my token. Kya Harkirat, you want to create a token? Okay, there you go. This is your new mint account. Just like we saw 3 mint accounts, we saw this USDC, USDT mint accounts all having space of 82. I will now create my own mint account, and all I have to pay is this much lamp ports. Not a lot of lamp ports I have to pay. I just need 82 bytes of space, and hence I have to pay just this much lamp ports. That seems like a lot for 82 bytes. I probably have to pay lesser. This program seems to have more. Let's see. That also looks like a lot. Initially our supply will be 0, so I don't think I have to put in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 87 SOL. This has 87 SOL. I don't know why this has 87 SOL. It could be because the space here has become too big, but I don't think that is the case. I think people might just be sending it, so I could be wrong. Either way, dekhte hain mere mein kitna hai. Let's see how much lamp ports did I have to pay to be able to create an account over here. How can I do that? There are steps in the slides. Basically, the one thing for you to keep in mind is make sure you are connected to DevNet. Unless you have real Solana, then feel free to create it on mainnet. But for this exercise so that everyone can do it. Number 1, create a fresh token account, Solana-keygen new -- force आपको करना पड़ेगा because you're forcing a new Solana account. You already have one. If you don't do this, it'll tell you have to overwrite. So overwrite it. Create a new public key. What is the next step? Can you guess? Airdrop yourself some Solana, right? If you want to create an account over here, you need to give it some Solana, which means you need to have some Solana yourself. So Solana airdrop 2. It'll give you 2 Solana over here. If I run Solana balance now, I have 2 SOL. Now I can create this new mint account. How can I do that? As I said, there is thankfully SPL token karke library, CLI, that lets you create a new token. Don't worry about this extra flag. We will come to this very soon. For now, all you have to run is SPL token create -token. If you run this command, it will understand that Harkirat wants to create a new token. The supply of this token will be 0. I am just creating its mint. I am not actually minting tokens to someone. So I will create this token mint. The supply will be 0. Abhi no one has this token. Let's run this. It says creating token this thing under program this thing. So it is creating this new token for me. It by default has 9 decimals. Can you now guess what decimals are? Solana also has 9 decimals. What did we say? 1 SOL equal to 10⁻⁹ lamp ports. And similarly, whatever this new coin is, one coin can be broken down into basically 9 smaller units. So if you want to send someone this Kirat coin in the future, you can send them 0.000000001. You can't send them smaller than this. It only has 9 decimals, which means isse chota nahi bhej sakte. It can be broken down max into these many smaller parts. That is what decimals 9 here means. If you want to create a token with lesser decimals, then you can do something like this. I think this flag is right. I could be wrong. Yes. Now it created a new token for me, which has only 4 decimals. So here you can only send 0.0001 of this specific token. You can't send these many tokens. Yeah, these many tokens. You can't divide it further than 4 tokens. If I make it 1, then you can at max send 0.1 of this new token. You cannot send 0.01 of this token. If I make this 0, what do you think happens? This is what is called a non-fungible token, an NFT, because I cannot send someone 0.1 of this. I have to send them at least 1 of this. If I limit its supply to be 1, then this is exactly what an NFT is. Something that cannot be divided down further, but let's not go there. Let's create a new one with, the default amount of decimals, which is 9. It created this new address for me. Let's see how much space did it take over here. How much money did I have to spend? I created a few tokens. Let's see how much balance I have left. I have 1.99 SOL left. So I did not have to pay too much. I still have 1.99 SOL left. In very little amount of SOL, how much is that? 0.008 SOL I spent. And I was able to create 5-6 token mints. I repeat, I created token mints. I have not yet minted this to anyone. I have just created this bank that can mint more tokens if need be. Let's see how much space this took. This is the address. Let's try to explore it on solana.com. What do I have to change here? Change this to DevNet. You did not deploy this to mainnet. You don't have enough money to do it. Haha. You only have airdropped Solana. You made sure you were connected to the DevNet over here. If I do Solana config get, it tells me I'm connected to DevNet. So this token is also deployed on DevNet. If I search over here, again, I lost it. So let me create a new one. If I search for this new token, it says it is an unknown token. It doesn't have metadata. It doesn't have a name like Kirath coin. It doesn't have an image. This is a default image, but it says here mint authority. Mint authority. Who can mint this token? This public key. Who is this public key? It is, can you guess? Me right here, right? I have created this token mint. I should be allowed कि मैं किसको देना. I should be allowed to mint this. So what does this mint authority mean? कि who has the authority to mint it? These are the decimals and this is the current supply, which is 0. I only created the token. I did not yet start to mint it to other people, which is why the supply is 0. Let's look at this in Postman and see how much space it took. I need to replace the URL with, you guessed it, DevNet. And it says executable false, lamp ports, not a lot of them. 0.001 SOL. And space again is 82. Mine also takes 82 space. There's also, USDC also took 82 space. They had more lamp ports. I have no idea why. But space taken is the same. It took, even USDC has 82 bytes on Solana. Even I have the same. What do these 82 bytes store? They store this data. What exactly is this data? This data is, things like these. Okay, what are the number of decimals? Who is the mint authority of this specific token? What is the current supply? Some of these, most probably all of these, are what are stored in this token account or this mint account, but you can actually see it. If you really want to see it, you can actually go to the Solana token library. Feel free to ignore this section if it feels a little but in the end, all of this code is present here. As I said, in the Solana token program, ये जो smart contract है, this smart contract, this green thing, the code of this is actually written by someone. It is actually open source and you can see it here. So if you go to program over here and go to source and go to processor, you will see there is a create token. Let's see. Bunch of functions. Again, feel free to ignore this section if this feels a little too, complicated. Let's look at instructions. Create token, create account. initialize mint. This is the function. As you can see, what inputs does it take? It takes decimals as the input, mint authority as the input. This may feel a little weird right now. Don't worry about it. We will understand later what this instructions.rs file is. But as you can see, the token instructions, what all instructions does this program accept? One of them is initialize the mint. What does initializing mint mean? Initialize this account right here. What inputs does it take? How many decimals do we have? What is the authority of the mint? Who has the authority to mint it? And who has the authority to freeze it, which is optional. So freeze authority is optional. I can specify it over here. If I run create token dash dash help, it will show me that I can also specify freeze authority, member address. There is mint authority, and where is freeze authority? Let's see. SPL dash token freeze authority. It took a longer detour here. SPL token. How do I search in here? Let me copy the whole thing. Let me open this in Vim. Let me search for FREZE. Enable dash freeze. There you go. If I pass in this flag, enable dash freeze, it enables the mint authority to freeze tokens for this mint. So what were the three inputs that we took? The three inputs that we took in the smart contract were mint authority, decimals, and freeze authority. This freeze authority will be set to this public key if I pass in the flag dash dash enable dash freeze. So when I'm creating the token, if I pass dash dash enable freeze, whenever the contract is called, उस contract में decimals would be 9. If I want, I can actually specify the decimals as well. 2, let's say. Enable freeze will make sure freeze authority is set to the mint authority. What is the mint authority? My address, Solana address. The person who is creating it, right? The person who is creating it, 7 eyes, this person right here, should be the mint authority. भाई मैंने बनाया, मेरा token है. I am the creator of this token. I am the creator of Bonkbot, whatever. Then I should be the one who has the authority to mint it. You can revoke minting authority as well. You can make this null. Basically, if you go here, this address, the mint authority, is the same person who called SPL create token over here. Makes sense. जिसने token बनाया है वही तो होगा mint authority. They should have the authority to mint it. But if you want, you can set this to null, and then you have a truly limited supply token. कि इस token का supply तो limited है. Mint authority is null whenever we do set it. That happens when you create a token and that token does really well. Then to make sure that developer cannot print more money, they just set this to null, and then everyone can clearly say that yes, no more tokens can be minted. We won't do that right now, but you can set this to null to limit the supply. Cool. We have been able to create a token. If we go back to the steps, we created a new wallet. We set the RPC URL to DevNet. It was already DevNet for me. We airdropped ourselves some Sol. We checked our Solana balance. कि कितना है. It was 2 initially. Now it will be 1.9 or something like that. It is 1.99. Then we created the token mint. We verified the token mint on chain कि हाँ भाई unknown token mint तो बन गई. Then what is the next step? Now comes the next layer of accounts. कि ये तो बन गया. You have been able to create a token mint. But how do you say that this person has 20 USDC? This person has 30 USDC. This person has 100 USDC. By creating an associated token account for them. कि for this token program, for this token mint, and for this user, this is their associated token account. Now, whenever a user wants to buy USDC, if you ever want to send them USDC, you first have to create this account for them. Only if this account is created, can you store कि भाई 20 USDC है तेरे पास. Can you store you have 30 USDC. This is why people say that when you transfer all your USDC, right, when this goes down to 0, you should close this account and take back your rent. I repeat, whenever you have a wallet, let's say you're very rich and you have, I forgot this. Let's say you have a lot of tokens, I only have Sol over here, but let's say I had some USDC, some USDT also. And let's say the amount was zero. I had zero USDT. Then I can just close this account and take back the some amount of Sol that might be there into my main Solana account. So whenever a user sees a new token over here, ignore Ethereum, Bitcoin, everything else, Solana and another token on Solana, whenever you see over here, that token has an associated token account on the blockchain for you. Just like you had to create this to create a token mint, you will have to, for every user who wants to hold this token, they will have an account जहाँ पे उनकी supply लिखी होगी कि भाई 20 USDC belongs to this person, 30 belongs to this person, and 3 belongs to this person. Cool. नहीं समझ आया? Might be a little complicated right now. But think of it this way. Okay, this is your bank account. If you created a new currency, that currency needs to have a new bank, or more specifically, this is not even a bank. This is like RBI or whatever that is, whoever is able to print money. This is like RBI. आपने INR बनाया, you created an RBI for INR. You created Dogecoin. You created a RBI for Dogecoin, which basically means, a place that can mint these Dogecoins. And whoever wants this now first has to open a bank account. You first have to open a bank account. Only if you open a bank account can you store 20 USDC there. And whenever this goes down to zero, just close it. No, whenever you created this account, this bank account, SBI said कि यार minimum balance आपको रखना पड़ेगा of 0.001 Sol. But if you have made this down to zero, if you no longer hold USDC, just close this account, take back your rent exemption as well. So these associated token accounts are something you have to create if you ever want to hold that token. The amount here is very small, minuscule, like 0.001 Sol. That is enough to store the data in here, which is why you don't worry about it. It might feel very overwhelming. Oh, wow, if I have 20 tokens, I have 20 such accounts. Yes, if you have 20 tokens that you hold in your Phantom wallet, after Solana, if you have 20 different Dogecoin, Pepe coin, Ye coin, Wo coin, yes, for every coin, you have some bank account in there. For my USDC, I have one bank account. For my Dogecoin, I have one bank account, which is again an account on the Solana blockchain. Let's try to create it. Let's try to create an associated token account. What is the current supply of our token? What was our token mint? Again, I forgot. Let me create a fresh token. SPL-token, create. Try it with me. Create a token. Check its supply. SPL-token supply. SPL-token supply and the mint address of that token. What does it say? कि भाई अभी तो zero है. No one owns this. Of course, no one owns this, right? We only created this. We haven't even created this. First, we have to create this. Then we have to mint some tokens here. Then the supply will go up. अभी तो supply zero ही है. अभी तो just this has been created. So how can you first create an associated token account? What does this command here does? SPL token, create account, and the ID of this token. Sorry, not ID of this token. Mint address of this token. If I run this command, SPL-token, what was it command? Create-account, and the token address. What will this do? It will create Harkirat's associated token account. I repeat, it will create Harkirat, matlab whatever the Solana address is here. What is the Solana address here? It is this 7IZ4D. Iska associated token account will be created when I run this command. I will be able to create my own associated token address. If I want to create someone else's, I can change, add a flag over here and add someone else's address as well. I can add a fourth argument here कि मेरे friend का भी बना दो. I want to create my friend's associated token account as well. But this command, what will it do? It will create an account, create this associated token account for Harkirat on this token. If you look at it, this token has a few parts. This token is for user 1 on USDC. This token is for user 1 on token mint, on Dogecoin. So SPL token create account for this token for Harkirat on this token. For Harkirat on this token. Two things you need to specify कि किसका बैंक अकाउंट खोलना है, हरकीरत का बैंक अकाउंट खोलना है, कौन सी करेंसी पे खोलना है, Dogecoin पे खोलना है. Whose bank account do you want to open? Harkirat's, or more specifically, whatever is the default address here. What currency do you want to open the bank account on? In this case is the Dogecoin. So now if I run this create account, it will create an associated token account for me. What will it create? Associated token account. This is the associated token account for the Dogecoin for user 1 that has been created. Created account this. Let's see how much space does this guy take. This guy takes, I see this from time to time. Okay, this does not work on DevNet. Never mind. Solana get, let's see. We can just see this on the blockchain as well. So if I go to explorer.solana.com and paste it, it says it is a token account. It doesn't have the space here. It says this is the token account. It says this is the owner of this token account. This is the mint of this. ये bank account है. This is the bank account. No, this is not the bank account. This is the mint. This is RBI. For this RBI and this owner, the token balance is 0. But at least you see this, right? कि यार इस user के लिए इस bank account, इस RBI पे और इस currency पे 0 balance is there. I have been able to create, what is this account? This account is this thing right here. For this specific token, which token, Harkirat? The token I had created over here, right? Here I created a token. What did this command do? This command created this. What did this command do? This command created this for me. Balance is still 0 over here. If you go back to the Explorer, how much token balance do I have? 0. But I have been able to create this account. अब इसमें मैं डाल लूँगा 20 USDC. I can mint more USDC over here. It is my account, right? I can put however much I want. This has infinite supply. I can put, more and more tokens in here. So next step, if you go to the slides again, is to mint the token to the user, is to mint some tokens to yourself. SPL token, mint. What is the token that you want to mint it on? This thing. How much do you want to mint? Let's say 100. Who will this go to by default? Again, I am only specifying RBI. I am only specifying the currency. मैं ये नहीं बता रहा किसको जाना चाहिए. I have not given a second argument here. By default, it will go to whoever has this address, right? Which in this case is me only. So whatever is my default address, they will now get 100 tokens. And now if I go to the same associated token account, if I go to this associated token account, I will see, okay, I have on DevNet, sorry. I have 100 of these tokens. I've been able to mint 100 tokens of this specific, 6FB, whatever this token is, doesn't have a name right now, but I've been able to mint 100 tokens of it. What is the best way for me to confirm? ये तो बहुत अगली लग रहा है हकीरत. The best way for me to confirm is if I now go to Phantom and if I add a new account here, select import private key, select local 3. What will my private key be? Which address do I want to put here? I want to import the current address, which is config.solana/id.json. This is what has 100 of those tokens, right? So let me copy this private key, paste it here, click on import. And what does it say? You have 0 Solana and you don't have that token either. Ye token to wahan aaya hi nahi. This to says I have, if I refresh this, I have 100 of this token. I have 100 of this weird mint token. What is this? This is the bank account, unknown token. What is the supply now? Supply is 100 now. But if I go back here, it says, yeah, you have 100, but why does Phantom not tell me? Can you guess? Where am I connected here? Mainnet. I am not connected to DevNet. If I change this to developer settings, turn on DevNet and go back here, it says, yeah, Solana to aap pe kuch 1.98 hai hi. And you have 100 of these unknown tokens, 6FB5U, 6FB3U. This token, even though it doesn't have a name or any metadata associated with it, has no image, has no name, it's an unknown token. Harkirat owns 100 of these tokens for sure. अब तो यहाँ भी दिख गया भाई, this is such a big wallet, ये थोड़ी झूठ बोलेंगे. तो how was I able to mint this token? I had to go through 2 steps. I had to first create a token mint. That was the first thing I did. That is exactly what happens. It went away, but you get the idea. If I was able to scroll up, that was the first command that I had written, SPL this command right here. Sorry, not this. This command, the SPL token create token command created this. Then what was the second command I ran? Create account command that actually created this thing right here. What was the third command I ran? The mint command that actually minted 100 of these token to this address. That is how you create your own token on Solana. And as you can see very well, I can visibly see कि हाँ भाई token बन तो गया. Harkiyat was able to create a token on the Solana blockchain and put it in his wallet. Now, if I want to send it to a friend, I can send it from here. When you send it from here, Phantom will ask you कि they don't have an associated token address. If I send this to a friend, उनका तो ये होगा ही नहीं. तो Phantom will automatically, take some Solana from your wallet. I repeat, Solana will take Phantom will take some Solana from your wallet, create an ATA for your friend. Let me try to send it. This unknown token. Let me try to send this unknown token to one of my other addresses. Let's say account 3 over here. Or let's say local Harkirat or local 2 over here. This address, I have many wallets here. This local 2 wallet may. Let me try to send 50 of these unknown tokens. Next. It says sent. ये तो बड़ी cool चीज हो गई हरकीरत. We तो never created this for local 2. ये जो local 2 account है. Now it has 50 of these. If we wait for a second, we will see 50 of those tokens. There you go. 50 token came here. But we तो never created this. We did create this. We did pay a little bit of amount to create this. If I go back here and try to inspect the transaction that just happened, let me go back to this wallet. And let's inspect that transaction. कि हुआ क्या है उस transaction में exactly. When I sent him 50 of those tokens, what happened? This is that transaction. If I open it, you will see associated token program create. I did create an associated token program for them. I was the one who ended up paying the amount of money that got debited from my account. This account right here. This Sol, I sent him 50 wo. I also some Sol got debited from my account and got credited into this associated token account for that user. ये जो दूसरा user है ना, this other user right here, local 2, when I sent them 50 Sol or 50 of my unknown token, sorry, I first created this account for them. I first created this associated account for them, which is why I had to pay. This amount got debited from my account, got credited where? Here. What is this? It is the associated token account for the other user. ये दूसरे यूजर का अकाउंट है. What does it say? Supply is 50. So I was able to create that account for them. I created for them, so I had to pay. You can see my Sol balance went down by a little bit more. Because I had to pay some gas, but more importantly, I had to create this associated token account, which required some money in there. So I ended up creating it for them. And then the money was stored. Now, if I send them 50 Sol again or 50 of this token again, do I have to recreate it? No. Let's try that. Let's try to send the same person, local to 10 more of this token. This transaction was also done. Let's see this transaction again. How did I see the transaction? I went to this account, जिसने भेजा था, the account that sent. I went here. I searched. I went to it hasn't come yet. Let's refresh. There you go. This is the transaction that happened a few seconds ago. If I open this now, you will see it's much smaller. How much did I pay this time? Only 0.0015. How much had I paid before? Let me go back a few sections here. This is the current transaction. I only paid this much. This was the old transaction. I paid this much. Why? Because I had to create an associated token account from them. Once this is created, up to I can, send them without, I don't have to recreate it for them. So I can send them whatever, 10 Sol, 10 token, 20 token without paying so much money. But here I had to pay a lot of Sol because I had to create this account for them. Hopefully that is clear. All right. Hopefully we understand associated token accounts. How are they linked to this token mint over here? And how can you, when you send your friend some USDC, if they don't have it, you have to create the account for them and then put it there. And again, if you create another token, you will have ATS for that, so on and so forth. Yeah, all of these steps we've done. To recap, what did we do? We created our own token first. from this section. इससे पहले तो we just airdropped ourselves some, created a new CLI wallet by running this to create a fresh CLI wallet. Set the RPC URL to devnet. Airdropped ourselves some Solana. Checked our balance to make sure it's more than 0 Sol. Created a token mint. What is a token mint again? The red thing over here. Verified the token mint on chain. Made sure कि दिख रहा है कहीं हाँ भाई it exists. Check the supply of the token कि हाँ भाई it should be 0 initially. Token mint has been created. I haven't yet minted it to anyone. RBI has been created for this token. User hasn't yet gotten it, so supply should be 0. Then we created our own associated token account. For the USDC mint, user 1 ka associated token account I created. Then I minted myself some tokens, let's say 100 tokens. Then we checked the balances on the Explorer. And on Phantom, we also sent it to a friend and ensured कि उनका भी ATA बन गया. They also got an associated token address. And then we were able to send them some SOL. All right. That is how you create a token using the CLI. Now, can you create the token using JavaScript? Yes. Thankfully, whatever commands you were running over here, the SPL-token commands, you can also run them via the @solana/SPL token library. So whatever commands you have to run via a terminal, you can actually use this library to do the same. For example, if you want to airdrop yourself some Solana, all you have to do is import this connection object from @solana/web3.js. Set this connection variable to a new connection object with devnet set as the URL. You can also replace this whole thing with the devnet RPC URL, Solana. This devnet URL, you can replace, if you don't want to use this cluster API URL, which will just, as the name suggests, return you the cluster API URL, which is this thing right here. You can just paste this directly over here. Then you define a function, which what does it do? It simply calls connection.request airdrop on this public key and, awaits for this transaction to confirm. Very similar to what happens when you run Solana airdrop 2 over here. This requests for a transaction and make sure it confirms. When it confirms, it lets you know that airdrop ho gaya hai. In this case, it failed because my rate limit is reached. I cannot keep airdropping myself more and more SOL. But here, if I call this airdrop function that I have defined over here, it will first call this request airdrop, which will under the hood do the same thing, which this thing over here does. It will request airdrop for this amount on this public key, which, I've hardcoded to a random public key. If you want to try this locally, of course, what would this be? This would be this address right here. So you would put this address over here and you would get the airdrop. And similarly, you can check your balance. So locally, that is fine. You can create your token mint by using this function called create mint that adds Solana/SPL token returns. Can you try to see its function signature? If you know a little bit of TypeScript, can you try to go into this function and see what all inputs does it take? Why does it take token program ID as an input? This seems like decimal as the input. This seems like mint authority. This might be freeze authority. This is who's paying for this specific transaction. So, rather than calling create mint over here, whatever SPL-token space create dash, create token. Rather than calling this over here, there is a create mint function that this library gives that I can use to create the mint, to create the red bank account. And then similarly, I can create an associated token account by using this function called get or create associated token account. Again, this is returned by the @solana/SPL token library. It gets or creates an associated token account. क्या तो मिल जाए, नहीं है तो बन जाए. That is what this function will return you. Once you have that, you can mint. You can use this mint2 function, which again comes from @solana/SPL token library. So this library will give you all three of these: create a mint, create an associated token account, mint to that associated token account. You can use these to write the same code in JavaScript. Can you try to use these to write the same code in JavaScript? Can you try to write it? I can of course take you through it, but can you try to write the same code? I've given you a hint, okay, these are the libraries that you have to use @solana/web3.js, @solana.js, @solana/SPL token. Same set of commands you have to write, but in JavaScript. And can you write the same in Rust, Go, Python? Does not matter. All of these are clients that eventually talk to an RPC, that eventually talk to the blockchain. Doesn't matter if this code is written in Rust that mints the token, that creates the token account, that creates the mint. Doesn't matter if you write it in JavaScript. Doesn't by the CLI. These are just ways to talk to the blockchain. In the end, you are just doing an HTTP call. You can also do all of this via Postman. You can create, it will not exactly be this, but something like this. Create token, decimals is 6, and whatever the other public key that can mint is this, so on and so forth. So, in the end, under the hood, these requests are only going out. They carry some signature along with them. I repeat, they carry some signature along with them so that, they can debit your Solana. But in the end, they are all HTTP calls that go to an RPC. It doesn't matter if you send it via Rust code, JavaScript code, or your normal CLI. CLI stands for command line interface, this thing right here. Next up was the Token 2022 program. I will take a break and, explain this maybe in another video. The biggest thing you need to take from here is this. How can you create a token with metadata? Basically, something like this. How can you create a token which has a photo, has a name, 100x token, things like these. Let's do that in the next video. Not too much difference if you read through it. Let me read through it quickly for you. Okay. Solana said, ठीक है, वो तो हमने बनाया था token program, but it has some shortcomings. Specifically, if you ever followed metadata programs on Solana, if you ever heard of Metaplex, it became very complex to attach metadata to tokens. What does attaching metadata mean? यही चीज right here, right? कि letting every token have a photo and a name. This and many shortcomings were fixed by the folks at Solana in the Token 2022 program. So if you go to GitHub also, you will find along with the token program, there is a Token 2022 program 2022. This has the new token program. This has a new smart contract, very similar to how this token program exists. They created a new one. A new white program was created. A new program was created. कि यार इसको भी use कर सकते हो, but preferably use this new one which has a few extra things. That is what the Token 2022 program is. And one of the biggest things it gives is, attaching metadata. In fact, I had another YouTube video. It's called the Web3 Roadmap, released March 2023. So feel free to go back to March 2023 on my channel and see the Web3 Roadmap video where I discussed this token program. And I discussed that attaching metadata is very hard. It's become very easy now. The assignment in that video was attach metadata to this specific token, for which you had to, use Metaplex or try it a different way. But now it's formalized very well in this Token 2022 program. And these are the steps to follow. Again, it's just SPL token. And here we use this -- program ID because we don't touch the original token program. We interact with this new token program. So rather than calling SPL token, create token, we call SPL token on this program ID, create a token, and then, enable metadata will, as the name suggests, enable metadata on this specific thing. Then we say, initialize this metadata, SPL token, initialize metadata on the specific token. This is the name of the token. This is the description of the token, or, one of them is the ticker, one of them is the name. And then this is where the metadata of this token is held. So it's metadata is usually held off chain. Off chain means, on some Web2 URL like this, or, if you've heard of IPFS or Arweave or IPFS URLs, where you have the actual image URL. So, this is usually kept off chain. This image URL, as you can see, points to a cat image, which is why, when you give these three things, finally, whenever you create an associated token account and mint, this remains normal only. How we had created an associated token account, how we had minted the token, you will see by the end that image comes from this URL over here. This URL is from where the metadata comes. Specifically, the image that you see over here comes from there. Cool. Maybe not cool, actually. Let me know. Try to follow these. Try to create your own token. If you need another video, let me know on Token 2022. But Token 2022 is nothing but another token program. Token 2026 will also come. Token 2027 will also come. Depends. Just like there is ERC20 in Ethereum, there might be a better token program in the future. So, you can use the old one or the new one. Either way, they're just numbers stored on the blockchain. They're just numbers. In the end, what is a token? It is just a number. It is a mapping. This user has this much token. This user has this much token, right? Doesn't matter if you use an old account that doesn't let you do a few things, or if you use a new program that gives you some extra things. You can always migrate from here to here as well. Take a snapshot of the current time and migrate all the user balances here. So, there's nothing jarring over here. It's fine. Programs will get better and better. In the future, there'll be a new program that comes. Some tokens might migrate. Some tokens, the new tokens might just use the new Token 2022 program. All right. With that, let's end it. Let me know if you need any extra thing. This week also, on Friday, we'll probably cover a bunch of this, we'll dive into ownership and PDAs. Maybe we will do the Solana wallet adapter. We'll go from there. All right. I will see you guys on Friday. Have a good night.